All right, so Ryan, 12 years you've been in the Gen AI space. I think that's more than anybody I certainly know in Gen AI.
Yep.
I actually think you were, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you were at the first Gen AI company ever in narrative science.
Yep.
Got acquired by Salesforce. Now you're at Salesforce. Can you take me through the last 12 years and kind of how you've seen AI from where it was at in sort of narrative science infancy to kind of what you're seeing today with AI agents and where you see things going?
Back then, I mean, we were the earliest language generation company in the world, and everything that the system could do, you had to teach it point by point, rule by rule. It was very, we call it deterministic. Then you fast forward to 2 years ago, Salesforce bought us. Right around that time, OpenAI launched GPT and then ChatGPT. And I think if you go from 2013 to 2 or 3 years ago, not that much changed commercially. There was a lot of predictive analytics, and there was things that people called AI, but that was mostly marketing speak, in my opinion. I think the big kind of jump forward was this idea that if you trained a deep learning model, which we don't have to get into all the details of that, but if you take a bunch of computing power and you give it access to all the data in the world, every document, every piece of knowledge you could possibly take off the internet, and you taught a system all of that, then you could create a system that would be able to mimic the way that people read, the way that people write, the way they listen, the way that they take action and take steps. And then today, we now have these super powerful models that are very good at mimicking human tasks in a very, very sophisticated way. So we're here to talk about agent force and agents, and I think the big change from the model economy to now into the agent economy is models are very hard to understand concepts. They're kind of these massive, large things that take all this power, all this money to set up. That doesn't make a lot of sense to most people, especially most executives at companies. Now we have agents, which the way that I think of them is we're taking the concept of AI and we're packaging it up into things people understand. People understand what a worker does, whether that's a salesperson, an analyst, an executive assistant. You generally know what they do day in, day out. You know what kind of skills they have. You know how much money they make. You know how many hours they work. A lot of those skills can now be packaged up into agents that you can deploy, whether that's 1 agent, 100 agents, 1,000 agents. And the unit of measure is very much more relatable to a person. So today, all you have to do is kind of say, this is what I'm trying to do. Here's the data or the information that I have access to. Please build me an agent that does X, Y, Z. And it does a remarkable job at kind of mimicking human behavior.
It sounds like what you're saying is kind of 12 years ago, it was like it took a lot of effort to get something.
Yeah.
Now we're it seems like we've gotten all the way to the point now where there's so much capability and I think what I've seen is so much reasoning ability of the AI to actually perform reasoning much like a human can, that you're starting to see this sort of overlap with, well, the AI agents can start to do a lot of the same things that a human can do in work. Tell me about what Salesforce's strategy is as it relates to AI. What is Agent Force? They just launched this at Dreamforce. Tell us a little bit about how Salesforce is adopting this.
Yes, I think the first point that I would make is 12 years ago, up until a couple years ago, in order to deploy an AI use case using language models, you would need to have a data engineer, a prompt engineer, or somebody who could train the system, right? All the use cases that we deployed back at my old company, I can now do that all on my own. I'm not very technical, but as long as I have access to ChatGPT and some data sources, I can literally spin up things within 10, 20 minutes that would have taken us weeks, if not months, to deploy using 3 or 4 different type of people to actually set that up.
Right.
Now I can do that work myself. So with Salesforce, with Agentforce, we have an entire platform, CRM, that's been used for 20 plus years. So almost every company in the world uses Salesforce, and all of their account data, all their customer data, all of that knowledge is stored in one place. It's very trusted, it's very centralized. Because of that infrastructure in place, we can now integrate AI in a way where people who are not overly technical can train agents to do a whole list of things that before you would say only people can do that. Answering help desk calls, customer service, being a salesperson that can respond to inquiries on your website. All of that can be easily set up on a platform where it's no code or it's low code. And as long as you use the Salesforce infrastructure, the ability to deploy an application or an agent, it's not a multiple week, multiple month process. It's as simple as connecting your data and then prompting it to do what you want.
Reading it back a little bit, it sounds like what you're saying is that like Salesforce is unique in that being the number one CRM, having this customer data that every company has their customer data in Salesforce, they're unique in being able to offer a more kind of almost verticalized AI solution where you go beyond just the model into integrating that model with your data, right? And like, I think one of the things I've seen when looking at AI agents in order to make an AI agent actually be able to do the things that your people can do, they also need to have the same context, the same knowledge and information and access to information, aka be able to access that customer profile and data about the customer, just like an service agent would pull up in their console and look at, what has this person bought, what is their account. The AI agent needs that same level of access to data. Mm-hmm. They also need the same level of access to taking action, right? To doing things like, if they're solving a problem for a customer, being able to read back on what was the order that this customer made, what's the status of that order, maybe even being able to refund an order or things like that you would have a human in a service capacity doing. So is that where your head is at? It's kind of all about that customer data.
To deploy any sort of AI agent, you have to have access to data. Salesforce has all of that. You have to have an integration layer where the agent has to go somewhere. It has to live somewhere. It can live right inside your CRM. It can live inside of an app that you deploy on Salesforce, inside of an analytic tool like Tableau. And what you're getting at is this concept of memory and context, where every customer interaction you've ever had back to the time they became a customer is stored inside of Salesforce. And so when you're answering a customer service request, it's not just about that request. It ties back to all the other requests that you might have had for the last 15 years. And so there's a customer profile where if you're a high spending client that maybe has had issues in the past, it's really important to know that when you're responding to them. If you're a brand new client and you've never ever called before, never emailed before with an issue, that's also very important. So you can actually personalize and tailor how the agent responds to you, knowing all the historical context. So I really think Salesforce, for companies who use our CRM, there's really no other platform that can shorten the time to value. And ultimately, if you were to deploy agents outside of Salesforce, there'd be a whole bunch of data transfer and reteaching and transferring a context. It would just be a waste of time because it already lives inside of Salesforce.
One of the things I've seen personally when implementing AI is that now we're at this kind of other end of the curve where we have these generalized models that have been pre-trained on, quadrillion, lines of text or whatever. And they're really kind of like smart. They're generally smart, but they're not like smart about your company, your business. Yeah. But what about that knowledge that's unique to the business? Maybe that service agent knows about your brand, your products, the way you deliver your service. Tell me about how they're solving that problem.
Yeah, I guess first off, disclaimer, we do not train any models using customer data. So one of the beauties of Salesforce is your data is your data. It's not our product. It's no one else's product. So the model that you mentioned, generic kind of LLM models, that I wouldn't say they're commoditized at this point, but I think we're heading in a direction where the large language models themselves will be highly commoditized. And that's where you get sort of the general knowledge about the world. When you pair that with a company's specific data, information, best practices, brand, et cetera, that's when you can take something highly generalized and very quickly tailor it so it's very good at doing whatever you need to do as a business. And the beauty of how Salesforce has done that is you call on the general model to provide kind of the agent backbone, if you will, and then you're supplementing the agent's knowledge with data specific to your business. Mm-hmm. But that data does not go into the larger model to get trained. So I think our advocacy is many clients are spending a ton of time building their own models, licensing things from the model companies themselves, just because they think they're going to have some sort of competitive advantage on that level. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, and it probably will be proven over time for most companies, not all, that doesn't make a lot of sense. If all you're trying to do is build sales agents, customer service agents, the typical things that we see being deployed, You really don't need to do that. You can tailor kind of a generic model to be a very specific, customized model for you without having to give it your own data. So I think that's where, because Salesforce has the data cloud backbone that can pair directly with the large language model, everything stays very bifurcated. There's no risk involved with actually having data leakage into the OpenAI model or the Claude model or Anthropic, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I like to think about it as like, GPT 4.0 or whatever the latest, model is. It gives you almost like if I were to go out and hire a really smart college kid, coming out of college, there are a lot of raw, probably even way smarter than that, honestly, when you think about the amount of knowledge that it has. But, it's got this raw kind of IQ capability, but you still need to feed it that knowledge about your business. And I think one thing that's really interesting is, there's sort of two things that you need to do in order to feed it that knowledge. First is like, you need to give it, just like you're hiring a new employee, like here's your handbook of like, here's how you do your job well, right? And I think Salesforce has a concept of Salesforce knowledge. Companies have already built up a lot of knowledge in Salesforce knowledge. I know with Data Cloud, they have that ability now to sort of centralize and unify knowledge from a bunch of different sources and feed it to the model and kind of that RAG architecture. But I think about coupling that kind of unified knowledge. How do you get all this disparate knowledge unified into a place that the AI can access it? But then also, how do you bring data that's more about that customer or that situation, the contextual data in at the same time? I think what you end up with is an AI agent that not only understands your business, understands the customer and their situation, and has the raw IQ potential to actually go solve the problem. So I think from my perspective, it seems like Agentforce has a lot of, like, they're onto something with this.
Yep. I have a hard time envisioning this not becoming just an obscenely massive market. Because when you think about what Agentforce actually means and you strip away the marketing and the technical aspect, there's a whole new class of worker entering the labor force. And it's already happened. I mean, there's been many companies deploying these things already. And because of that, it's almost like any company that has an Agentforce type strategy, whether it's Salesforce or someone else, we're almost becoming like a staffing firm where you want to go hire out for a certain type of skill or talent. Obviously, you're going to continue hiring people to do that work, but now you also have AI agents that you can augment your existing workforce with. Or maybe there's a talent shortage. There's a shortage of human capital across the market. Now you can potentially fill that void with AI instead of people. And so to me, when you take away the technical aspect of what's possible and where is this going, and you just think about the economy, I believe if there is a demand for something that's outsized, eventually the market will find a way to fill that need. There is obviously always a need for top talent, and there's always a need for how do we improve the quality at scale of our sales, of our customer service, of our HR, whatever that thing is that you're trying to improve. There's never going to be a company that says, I want to do things worse and more expensive. I want to do things better, and I want to do it. I want the economies of doing that thing better to be more economical.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure. One of the other topics I was interested in hearing from you on is you have like the raw sort of raw models, the raw AI, but it seems like what people are doing now, and a lot of effort that Salesforce is putting forward as well, is in how do you take these AI agents and make them almost like verticalized. So we've been talking more abstract. Let's drill into like, what's an example of a real world situation where an AI agent is going to maybe transform the way a consultancy, for example, does its work and sort of augmenting, consultants?
I mean, I think the word consultancy obviously takes on a lot of meaning. So I'll kind of break that down into a couple things. One, for management consultants and companies that provide advisory, and then also some delivery work, their number one differentiator is just the knowledge and their experience and their track record. Right. That they're a knowledge-based organization, and they get hired to learn about their customers' problems and then apply their knowledge so the customers can be more profitable, grow faster, et cetera. Because of that, the fact that they are a knowledge-based business, large language models, definitionally, that is a knowledge-based platform. It's a knowledge-based capability where we've already seen this, and this is, you can go to people's websites. These consultancies are training their own versions of LLMs, large language models, with a whole bunch of knowledge going back, 50, 60 years of how they do business and all the research they've done, and they've funneled that into the large language model. So when they get a new project, let's just say, a manufacturing firm has a supply chain issue or something, and the consultant that's on the project has to figure out, what advice do I give this company, right? Well, what do? You get data from the client, you load it into Tableau, and with AI agents, the system can basically analyze the data for you and then suggest, like, here's the metrics that we found that are out of whack. And by the way, here's what's driving these things to be crazy, and here's what you should do to actually fix them. Tapping into that knowledge base, you can literally have the system give the consultant an end-to-end plan on, here's how we recommend approaching this with the customer, because we've actually solved this problem 500 times before at different companies, and the starting point is not, okay, we got to go find who knows what's going on and ask them. The knowledge center of the language model actually already knows that. So to kind of bring it down to use cases, I think it starts with, how do you know when to approach a customer? When do you think is a good time to actually call a customer to talk about a problem or to start a new transformation type project? There's a whole bunch of data in the world that you can track to figure out, for this company, we'll just say, Macy's retailer. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the news about Macy's. Their executives, they're hiring new people. There's a bunch of things going on at Macy's that suggest they might be looking to invest in some sort of business transformation. That's something that you can figure out programmatically a lot sooner. And then the AI agents can actually give you recommendations on how to approach them in a way that isn't calling them up and pitching them, or calling them up and taking them out to dinner. It's more of a soft approach. Have an agent maybe give them some white papers to read, invite them to some webinars, a slow kind of drip campaign, so they're always thinking about your company's brand next to whatever problem they're trying to solve. So I really think it's end-to-end use cases, and then some really boring stuff. I mean, these companies have a lot of executive assistants that are, setting up meetings, booking travel, a whole bunch of stuff where, why not take your best executive assistants and then scale them up to help more people? And then these companies produce millions of PowerPoints every single year that you look at data, you create a visualization, you put it into a PowerPoint. That entire value chain, why not just take your best people at that, give them some AI agent tools? Now they can do 10 times the amount of beautiful PowerPoint work. So it's a business that's ripe for disruption. They know this. I mean, most industries are not investing as much as the management consulting firms are. And then you get into the delivery work. I know you're a software consulting firm yourself, but the ability to give your coders and your engineers tools to quickly spin up applications and do code testing and build things out. I'm guessing, how long does it take you now to build applications? Probably a lot faster, and you can do more work in less time, happier clients. I mean, that's probably an easy sell.
Yeah, I mean, no, for sure. And I mean, speaking from personal experience, like I still dabble in programming from time to time. I built an application this year. I shouldn't even say I built it. GPT built the vast majority of it. I think it took me about 20 hours. It would have probably taken me 200 to 300 hours a couple of years ago. When I think about what you just described for more of that end-to-end, how do you get in AI agents that can help you with go from, mining for insights, getting an insight to acting on that insight? That end-to-end process is really about chaining these things together. Chaining, you think about ChatGPT, you got this open window you got to type in to give it some type of instruction. But where I see that like massive amount of sort of innovation probably happening within more at the vertical level is starting to chain those prompts together to build workflows in dynamic workflows. But like you said, reaching from looking for insights, mining data, which obviously Tableau, great platform to do that, mining for insights and data, and then taking that through in chaining multiple agents together to ultimately get to some type of an outcome.
You're exactly right. Yeah, and I think that's where old world is starting to meet new world, because before, most AI apps or agents that you would build, they were very point solutions. They did kind of one thing and they did it really well, but they didn't have a bridge to another agent or another capability. Using kind of the Agentforce examples, I think where companies will take this is they won't think of it as a sales agent and a marketing agent or a data analyst agent. They're going to have their own branded agents. Like, we're going to build an AI agent and we're just going to call it whatever name we want to call it, and we're going to give it skills. We're going to give it executive assistant skills, we're going to give it sales skills, marketing, data analysis, etc. And now you have this cohesive system where you might have started with a sales problem or a sales thing that you need help with. That might quickly dovetail into a marketing ask, or let's book an event, or let's do something else with that. With a series of very simple prompts, all of that can come back to you with, we have a plan for you. Do you want to execute on this plan? Say yes. All these agents are now working together on your behalf. You don't even need to know how they all fit together. All you have to sign off on is this kind of the plan, the workflow that you want to do? Say yes, the system goes and does all that for you. So I think you're 100% right. It's hard to see a limit to where this can go, as long as we're sort of saying work that you can do on a keyboard, right, in front of a computer, which is a lot of the work in the economy today. Most of that will be able to be built into an AI agent in the near future.
What are some of the kind of current limitations of these AI agents today that you expect will be different, say 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think there's perception-based limitations where maybe people have had a bad experience, with using AI in the past, or they've used ChatGPT and it just, they've prompted it a certain way and it gave a wrong response, or it hallucinated and they just don't trust it anymore. That's a totally valid reason to not deploy AI tomorrow in your business if you've already had bad experiences with using it. So I mentioned perception because I believe if you prompt these systems correctly and you put the right controls around it, the power of what they can do today is so much greater than what most people are trusting it to do. So there's a trust factor that we have to get over, which I think is going to just take time. And I think the advocacy then would be start with areas of your business that are high impact but low risk. Not an area where you deploy this thing and now your stock price is at risk, right? Don't do that. So I think perception and trust are just a natural barrier that we're going to have to keep kind of working through. Beyond that, there's integration limitations. So if you do not have your data centralized, harmonized, and just clean and trusted, then AI naturally is not going to be able to take you very far. Many companies do not have what I just said, a centralized, trusted, cleansed, harmonized data source. And so you can't blame the AI for what is actually a data problem.
Yeah, totally.
And that's been going back 20 years. People would say, why doesn't my Tableau visualization answer all my questions? So why can't it answer that question? It's not because Tableau has a problem. It's usually because your data either is messy or it's siloed, it's not connected together. So if you listen to Mark Benioff, before the Agentforce big transition, it was always about data cloud and the data. And the data conversation has not gone away. Now AI is the carrot. So fix your data, not for the sake of fixing your data. Fix your data so you can go hire trusted, really good AI agents. So
right.
I think those are, to me, those are the two biggest limitations. I think the other category of limitations would be highly regulated or high leverage, high risk use cases. So work in healthcare or criminal justice, financial systems where you're managing money or making stock decisions. There's just parts of the economy where you can't make mistakes. The federal government, defense, those are areas where I think AI will be a partner and it will be someone that sits on your shoulder to help the human do things, but
more human in the loop.
It's human in the loop. Any decisions and actions have to be made by a person, I think in many cases there. But we're talking about, no offense to people selling software. I sell software. If you're selling software, there's a lot of things that I do that I wouldn't cry about giving up. I'm I don't hold the nuclear code. So it wouldn't be a problem to start automating a lot of what I do to free me up to go do things I want to do.
Yeah, so at LaunchPad, we've done quite a few Gen AI projects over the last few years. And I think one of the things that I definitely have realized when consulting with our clients on, hey, where can you get value from Gen AI? It's almost every situation data becomes an issue. They're
right.
Data silos, data, they've got certain data not accessible to the AI. And I think one of the things I've realized with these AI agents is, for example, with Agentforce, your agent's living in Salesforce. It can't just minimize Salesforce and go into a different app and click around and stuff like that. At least not yet,
Right.
Who knows what's coming. But I think, making sure you have the data integrations in place so that agent can make an API call to go fetch data about something or to do some type of action. I've definitely noticed that as part of a lot of our projects, we're doing a lot of data projects in order to enable these Gen AI projects. So I love the way you framed, there's this huge carrot, which is hiring this workforce of AI agents
right.
to augment your workforce of humans. But to get there, you have to do that, not fun work, but the important work of connecting and building a data strategy, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think, I've been in the Gen AI, but also Gen AI plus data and analytics. That's been my 12 years of evolution in this space. And it can be hard to convince people, go fix your data because we're going to give you better insights. And we're going to, give you better visualizations, and you'll have better transparency into your business. And I think the companies that probably perform the best financially, this is actually probably proven, they do have the best data strategy, and they have the best kind of end-to-end workflows around empowering people with insights. But I think for a lot of companies, that's too abstract. It's like, so you're just going to build me a better dashboard, and you're just going to give me a better kind of spreadsheet of data. That's not enough. But I truly believe that the concept of we can now help our sales team be more efficient. We can now take our overhead or non-billable type employees and scale our best ones so they're 10 times more productive. You start having those types of conversations, and all you have to do is fix your data to get there. That's a CFO conversation, because everyone understands a capital investment to fix something, you have to have a 5, 10, 20x return over the course of the next 5, 10 years. That's much more apparent now when you're talking about AI, for sure.
Yeah. Also on the AI front, making sure that you don't overcook it where it's years before you find business value. I'm curious to talk and hear your perspective a little bit on how do you crawl, walk, run into it? How do you get value quickly?
Yeah.
But also make sure you're setting yourself up for long-term success.
Yeah, I used to get in trouble for saying this, but before you ever hire any consultant, no offense to any consultants in the room, or you buy any piece of software in the AI space, especially now with ChatGPT and other tools, you should just go test some use cases on your own using fake data. How do you get fake data? You ask ChatGPT, go make up some data, right? Or go create a simulated environment just by telling it, hey, this is the type of company I am. I want to build a sales agent. Go create a fake environment and then go show me in this portal how you can build me an AI agent. It will do that for you. And then it's going to do something and you're going to say, I don't like that. I like this. Do more of that. Some idea will pop into your head. Every executive at the C-suite should be doing that right now. Don't give it proprietary data, but create a fake, we used to play that game, The Sims, right? Sim World or Sim City. Go create a simulated business in ChatGPT that's just like yours and ask it to solve some problems for you. Go do that. So that to me is the crawl. Everyone should be doing that tonight. Go do that tonight. Don't stop, just go do it. But beyond that, I think you should be able to get value out of an AI investment, at least your first couple, within a couple of months. Max. And you should be able to see proof of value that it's going to work within a couple of weeks. I think that's where, I don't know if it's Moore's law or whatever law, but how everything becomes faster and easier and cheaper. 6 months ago, a year ago, it would have been still a pretty long timeline to see value out of AI. That's no longer the case. With Agentforce, I was at Dreamforce, you were there too. I think we had a couple tens of thousands of people, maybe, built AI agents on site while they were at Dreamforce. So
they had AI agents helping you build AI agents.
So literally, they went from a keynote, Mark's keynote, to building something themselves that was more or less a pilot or a proof of concept in a couple of 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of legacy bias towards AI that, we've had a couple of peaks and valleys where people got all excited and didn't really deliver. I think we're past that at this point. So it's weeks and months is the time frame you should be thinking of before you get value out of maybe even just a small type of AI investment.
Yeah, and I know some of the use cases we've seen at LPL are on some of the more kind of menial task type of stuff. So you get PDFs in. PDFs are coming into the company. You gotta pull data out of those PDFs and put it in a database or something. Right. Using AI to automatically parse those files dynamically, find certain pieces of data, and consistently get it into a structured format, right? We've seen really good success with that type of use case. We've seen good success with the consulting use case you gave earlier of helping one of our clients who is in the consulting space build their own kind of proprietary ChatGPT, if you will, based on their thousands of pieces of content they've written over the years that, frankly, now you can start to use this chatbot almost like you were talking to one of their consultants. It's pretty amazing. What I always tell clients too when they're looking at, where should we start with AI is, look at your whole company and try to figure out what are the roles in your business, what are the areas of your business where you're like, I kind of wish we didn't have to do all of that all the time. Right. We have a lot of people who have to do this kind of, maybe a certain type of data entry, or we have people who are just triaging something. And, could we automate that triage process? And so, I always like to start with pull open the org chart and figure out where do you have a lot of people doing things that you wish they didn't have to do. And could you repurpose them to more value add activities? And then figure out how do you apply AI to that department or area. Yeah,
I think what you're saying is spot on. AI has created the biggest mirror that companies should look in that we've ever had. There's never been a time when you should be more motivated to, before you go look at AI and figure out what's AI good at. That's where the first thing is just let's look at ourselves. Let's figure out what are we good at as a company? What's our core competency that we do better than anybody else? What's everything else that we also spend time on? All the stuff that we don't want to be doing that's not a core competency, make a list, prioritize it, figure out how much it's costing you. That's where you should be starting your AI investments. And then on the stuff that you are really good at, that's your competitive advantage, how can AI take that even further, right? How do you digitize or AIify whatever that core competency is that you do really well, layer some AI on top of it, and now the data and the knowledge and all the what's the state secrets of how you do business, you can embed that into an AI system. Now you're scaling your knowledge and your core competency well beyond what your competitors can do. So anyway, 100% look at your business first, understand where the opportunities are before you go out and buy a whole bunch of software.
Yeah. I think about this AI wave is almost kind of like when the internet came out, where you have this sort of, it's just this raw new technology that is super powerful, but we're still building the apps on top of it. I think the scaffolding is still being kind of set up on top of it, and companies are building on top of this raw technology. What do we expect? Is there going to be a landslide of new capabilities coming from businesses building on this raw kind of underlying technology?
Yeah, I think that's a great point on the disruption, because I think just since the beginning of time, there's always been technological advancements that have been sort of fulcrum points of the companies that do that thing really well, they succeed. The companies that are late or they don't do it well at all, they fall by the wayside. I think the average time of a Fortune 500 company now is 1/4 as long as it used to be 20 years ago. So companies are coming in and out of the Fortune 500 very quickly. They're getting acquired, they're going out of business, they're merging. The ones that succeed are the ones that handled, the internet digital boom the best, the mobile boom the best. I think AI has a lot of similarities to that, but I think the AI shift, and it's already happening, by the way. Many companies are already using AI in different ways. I think it's going to be much more of a progression. I just think it's going to be much more of a, we're going to see use cases launched that feel natural. We already use chatbots today. We already call customer service lines. We already interact with salespeople today. I think the experience of how we interact with businesses is just going to get better and better and better and better. Because if you don't use an AI system to augment your people, it's going to be obvious to your customers, and they're going to gravitate toward companies that do. What I do think will be somewhat jarring is you don't need a lot of money to start an industry business today with a bunch of AI that you don't need to go hire a bunch of people to begin a business. And so I think there's certain industries where you might just see whole new brands pop up out of nowhere to challenge the typical brands that we've all gotten very comfortable with, in different categories. So that's more of the economic shift that's going to feel a little bit weird. Is really smart people are going to be going to startups, and some of them are going to be very successful, and that will feel sort of very fast. And there's going to be some companies that already exist that do really well that will totally reinvent themselves completely. And the way that we think of them tomorrow might be different than how we think of them today. If you think about a big bank, they're not doing very well, so let's just rebrand our bank. And now it's a brand new bank that no one's ever heard of. We're just going to market the crap out of it, right? Well, why not just reinvent how you do business with AI altogether, and then people will view your company totally different because the way you do business is totally different. So I just think it's going to be a fundamental way people change how they actually serve their customers that will create a bunch of opportunities for companies to shift how they do business, and then startups to challenge the incumbents.
So one other thing that I wanted that I wanted to chat with you about. Walk me through the journey into Tableau and what y'all are up to at Tableau.
Yeah, so Tableau has always been focused on this mission of helping people see and understand data. That's been the mission from the very beginning. And I think where that tagline has done so well is everyone was used to spreadsheets, and everyone was very crappy.
Still a lot of people using a lot of
spreadsheets. But when you're competing against spreadsheets and you show somebody this unbelievably beautiful data discovery platform where you can ask whatever question you want, you plug in the data, you can present your ideas and your stories back to your stakeholders, your employees. No one does it better than Tableau, and that's still the case. I think where the tagline is continuing to expand is you can see and understand data. Now you can act on it, and now you can have an impact on your customers, on whatever the thing is that you do. That assembly line from an insight from data all the way through impact can now be completely automated with agents.
What you're saying is like the raw ability of Tableau to be able to mine data and find insights has been there. And that's really 100%. A powerful part. The challenge has just been the multiplier from taking those insights, turning it into actual impact. What you can actually do now is really is build that multiplier up, where it's like, okay, now anytime there's an insight, there's a much higher likelihood, a much higher frequency that insight translates into actual action and actual impact.
Taking a step back, we've done a lot of research on this at Tableau. 80% of people inside of a company, they're just not data people, right? And data on its own is completely meaningless, right? The whole point of collecting data and buying all these storage warehouses and just collecting every data point, it's not just so you can have it, it's so that you can do something with it, right? And in most companies, there's a minority of people that understand how to do really good analysis with data. They're really good at sort of creating visualizations and stories around it. But they then hand that off to someone else in the business that has to do something with it. And that handoff is where things typically break down. So when I say most people are not data people, what I'm not saying is most people need information. They need knowledge to do their job better. But the gap between data and insight into that knowledge, it's been broken. I think for every data visualization company, that's been broken. Where Tableau agents really kind of bridge that gap is we will not only surface information to people in a way that is completely different. So before, you log into a Tableau dashboard, you look at a visualization, you got to kind of figure out how to use it. Now, you might get an alert in Slack, and the alert's going to say, hey, your inventory, days on hand inventory metric is up 18% week over week. Okay,
what's going on there, right?
What do you normally do next? You probably go to an analyst and be like, hey, what's going on?
Right.
What if you could just say, why? Why is it going up 18%? And the system's going to write back and say, well, the Chicago plant is up 85% month over month due to this supplier. Okay. What's going on with this supplier? Okay. Who inside my company manages that supplier's relationship? Okay. When was the last time we met with them? Can you start a Slack conversation with the team that owns this part of the problem right now? Have that conversation. Great. Okay. Close the book on that problem. That sort of workflow before, the last year, that just wasn't possible. And then the whole idea of like the Tableau creator, right? Most companies, there's a breakdown between people who build data assets and people who consume them, right? But what if the ability to create data assets was as simple as saying, I've got this data, I have questions, give me an analysis of it, and it just does it for you. And then instead of having to ask an analyst to fix it for you, you just say, I want to learn more about this, and can you format it differently? I don't like the colors, and I want to see a heat map, blah, blah, blah. And it redoes it for you directly inside of an interface.
Yeah.
Now, every single person is now a creator.
Right.
But they're not thinking of themselves as a data analyst or a data person. They're just an executive or a business person trying to do their job, and there's a trusted agent that can help them do that. So I think that whole paradigm shift between a data person and a non-data person, everyone's an information person. Everyone's a knowledge person, and we're now giving everyone tools where they don't have to get smarter to use our tools. The system is meeting them where they are, so they can just do their job the way they've always done it, and we will meet them where they are.
It's like they're talking to a colleague. Like
100%.
the way you just explained that in Slack, it's almost like if I had an analyst that reported to me and whose job it was to feed me with insights, information, and help me solve problems. Now I have that in an AI agent in Slack that I can communicate with, that can go instantaneously give me back insights and feedback, and I mean that's crazy.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I would just kind of share is the data analytics world was very siloed in the sense that if a person in this team makes something really awesome, but they want to do something similar in a different team, usually you kind of have to like rebuild, connect to a new data source, do this different type of analysis. Everything that I'm just talking about right now, it's all very transferable because we've invented basically the Tableau semantic layer where you train the system on how your business metrics all fit together, how the whole knowledge base of your company works. And then when you want to create a new data asset or you want to answer new questions, the system generally already understands how your business data fits together. You're no longer starting from raw data set, define the metrics, build out a visualization. It already knows all of that. You're just kind of taking the pieces that exist and putting them together for yourself. So it's an exciting time, very exciting time to be at Tableau.
For sure. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome conversation. Thank you for all the insights today. I mean, it's incredible what Salesforce is doing and obviously what Tableau is doing. Give me your kind of closing, anything you want to leave the audience with before we shut this down.
Yeah, I'll call it sort of the carrot and the stick. So the carrot, which I'll start with the good news, is the time to transform your business and the effort and the cost to do so. It's never been faster, potentially less expensive, and it's never been a better time to do it than right now. The capabilities for AI, for the most part, are there. The gap between your business sort of taking advantage of everything that you want to do to kind of grow your business, the gap is the data organization, the data cleanliness, that piece, and just integrating everything together. Luckily, with a tool like Salesforce, if you're already a Salesforce customer, the ability to layer on AI agents on top of that, it's never been easier to do that. So I think a lot of the fear and the apprehension in the market, people who've been burned by AI investments in the past, I would just encourage people that it's a much different world that we live in right now. The AI was always the problem before. It just wasn't good enough. The AI is now good enough. Your data probably isn't. So let's work on that problem. So that's the carrot. I think the stick, kind of the scary part of that is if you don't take this seriously, and I'm not talking about your IT team or your technical team, at the CEO level of your business, I don't care if you're a 100-person company or 100,000, you have to have an AI strategy right now, because the way that this will turn, and the winners and the losers, because like I said, the companies are going to be transformed and disrupted, it's going to happen slow until it's not slow. And then it's going to happen very, very quickly. And so I think it's a scary time for a lot of businesses that don't have a plan, they don't have an AI strategy. I think for most companies in that place, it's probably because they have not found a trusted partner to help guide them along the way. That's not just trying to sell them a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I do think at Salesforce, we have an insanely customer-centric mindset, and we're really trying to become that trusted AI partner for our customers. But also the system itself, if you look at our core values, and when Mark talks, the number one thing he talks about before anything else is what? Trust. And so we've tried to really build out this trust layer in our system so that when you're deploying AI for your customers or inside of your company with your employees, you've got a platform where they're standing behind every aspect of what the system is doing. So that's the stick side of it, is you got to go now. I'm not saying go spend a bunch of money and deploy a bunch of stuff, but you got to start working on the testing and the strategy side immediately. What about you? What's your takeaway?
Yeah, so I think for me, like, I personally think that even though it can be a little scary, as a business leader, when you really look at this as an opportunity, there is a lot of opportunity to drive revenue and profit by really looking at your business and reimagining how it can really work,
right,
with AI powering every step along the way.
Right.
So for me, I think like what I would leave people with is you probably are underestimating just how far you can take the tech. Most people I've talked to are sort of skeptical.
Yeah.
And I think they should be. You know, you have every right to be skeptical of something like this. But my experience so far has been that with good engineering and good thinking and how you architect these systems, typically you can go further than people realize in what you can really automate or transform about your business. A lot of it comes back to, can you get your data to a good place? Can you really define like what it means to do great service in your company? But I think that if you spend the time to actually reflect and really look hard at, if we were to completely transform the way we work at every step of the way with AI powering that, what does that mean for our business? Usually there's huge amounts of profit potential to be earned through that exercise. So it's exciting. Like as a business leader, you have a unique opportunity to go make your business way more valuable by really embracing the technology.
You made me think of a follow-up. How does LaunchPad, when you engage with customers for the very first time, thinking about AI, after that first call, and they're like, hey, I'm interested, like, hold my hand, walk me through, like, how do we actually figure this out for ourselves? How do you start that process? Like, what's your engagement model? How do you start that?
Totally. Yeah, so it's kind of a simple, pretty consistent process that we've established for these AI projects. And it really starts with the first step is understanding current state. It's mapping their current state. We need to understand who are all of the people in whatever department we're looking at or whatever area of the business we're looking at, and what are they doing? So what's that current state look like? Where are they spending their time? How many people do you have spending their time in that way? What we're doing with that current state analysis is we're trying to figure out where's the low-hanging fruit? Where are the kind of repetitive, or where are the things that we think transformation will drive the biggest ROI for the business, right? So understanding current state helps us ultimately tie back any type of initiative to really good ROI, right? So we understand the current state. The next thing we do then is, and this is really where the skill comes in, is we can sort of understand how would we as a consultant who sees things fresh from the outside, how would we reimagine the way these people are working with everything we know about what we can do with AI? And that's really where that skill comes in on being able to help a business kind of reimagine themselves, right? But usually we can look at a team or a department, and we can very quickly see tons of opportunities to inject AI into their tech stack, into their flow, into their process to remove steps. Completely remove steps. And so current state, we map out what we call the art of the possible on the future state. And then we start to figure out from there, okay, what's the how? We got the current state, we know where we could go. what's the roadmap to getting there? And that's the crawl, walk, run approach of, okay, how do we find something maybe in a 8 to 10 week cycle where in 8 to 10 weeks we can deliver massive value to the business, and then we go do it again, right? And so the flow for us, it really starts with that upfront discovery,
like a 2 to 3 week program.
Yeah, we call it a blueprinting workshop, but it's a 2 to 3 week workshop process where the first week's a lot of usually it's like an all-day on-site. We're just going deep. We're understanding their business. We're understanding how they're doing things. And then the next, 1 to 2 weeks after that are really LaunchPad in our lab, doing our thing, shaping the art of the possible. And usually what we do after we do the blueprinting workshop is we'll do a POC. So we'll do like a feasibility study, because at the end of the day, this is a probabilistic system. It's different than like, let's say we're building more of a program for a client. With a program, you can write tests for it, and every single time it'll have the exact same result. With an AI system, it's more of a probabilistic system, which makes it inherently, it requires more proof of concept work up front more. And so we've been doing, typically the flow goes blueprinting workshop, we establish a game plan, then we move into proof of concept to validate that plan is like actually feasible. We can validate that the AI is accurate enough to justify the use case. Then we move into the full build mode. And that flow has worked pretty well. And it allows you to go, maybe it takes about 6 weeks to do the workshopping, to figure out what you're going to do, to POC it. 6 weeks up front, but then you're de-risking lots of things down the line. And usually from there, it's anywhere from, we had a project that only took 4 weeks. We've had some that, we have another project that's completely transforming another business that's taking about a year, right? Or we're totally transforming their whole tech stack. So it can really range on the timeline in what you're doing, but we're usually trying to find something in the like 8 to 12 week type of window.
Right. This was a fun conversation, Ryan.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
Again, that was a bad hit.
We got to try that again.